So, good afternoon, one and all. I welcome you all to the fifth day of Faculty Development Program on the topic Sampling Techniques. I now invite Mohammad Kaif to initiate the session by reciting few verses of the Holy Quran. Kaif.
السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Kaif. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk to us about the sampling techniques, which is an important part of research. Our resource person is serving as an assistant director and assistant professor at Yashwantrao Chavan School of Rural Development, Kolhapur. He has presented 5 papers at various national conferences and research scholars meet. He has presented series of lectures on net and set examinations, statistics, and workshops. He has attended 18 workshops, conferences, and seminars. He has worked as a convener of 2-day national workshop on academic writing, combating plagiarism, citation management, and publishing research papers in high impact factor journals held on 8th 9th January 2015 at Yashwantrao Chavan School of Rural Development, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has worked as member of organizing committee for English communication lecture series at YCSRD, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has organized today's seminar on challenges and changes for sustainable development in post-crisis era at Yashada, Pune. He has organized one-day workshop on science and technology for rural development at Vigyan Ashram, Pawal. About 210 students from 13 different colleges participated in this workshop. He has worked as member of organizing committee for 3-day national level conference on emerging trends in electronics and computer science during 8 to 10th February 2010 held at Dr. D.Y. Patil Arts, Commerce and Science College, Pimpri. He has participated in state level conference on recent trends in physico-chemical science, biotechnology and biodiversity on 12th and 13th of Feb 2010 at D.Y. Patil Arts, Commerce and Science College, Pimpri. He has arranged one-day workshop on personality development on 13th January 2010 under the banner of Students' Welfare. About 430 students participated actively in this workshop. Apart from this, he has been working as a rector of boys hostel at Shivaji University, Kolhapur from 2014 till date. He is also working as a coordinator, in charge teacher of remedial coaching scheme of Master of Rural Studies, MRS, Yashwantrao Chavan School of Rural Development, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has worked as a member of advertisement and preparation of brochure for admission process of Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has undergone orientation program for newly recruited teachers of Shivaji University on advances in teaching, learning strategies, and professional development, which was organized by Department of Education, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, during 2nd and 3rd September 2014. He is well versed in the statistical softwares like R software, MATLAB, Minitab, Mathematica, SPSS. With a person of such high caliber and with a small conversation with him today, he is a very I came across to know that sir is very jovial too. I, on behalf of Anjuman Degree College, extend a hearty welcome to Dr. Santosh Sutar. Over to you, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rukia ma'am, for the nice introduction. Let me thanks to the organizer for giving an opportunity to interact with this nice crowd. So we have arranged the faculty development, one-day faculty development, 1 week faculty development program on basic research, procedures, and publications. And as it's I guess the 4th day, right, ma'am? We have started.
It's the fifth day, sir.
Yeah, this is the 5th day,
Yeah.
right? And the sampling, as far as the research is concerned, so right now these all the teachers or the participants have get familiar with the term called as research and the procedure. And that research contains a basic and very important step as a sampling. So I'm very happy to have the interaction, or I will just try to give the idea about the sampling and what are different sampling schemes are there, and maybe you can use that sampling scheme whenever it is necessary for your research. So I will share my screen and we'll directly go to my presentation. Ma'am, the screen is visible?
Yes, yes, it's
Yes.
visible now.
Yeah. For better streaming, let me put my camera off. Will it be okay, madam?
But the screen is not visible. You are visible, your screen is not visible.
Yeah, yeah. Wait a minute. I'll just stop my video
Okay.
so that we'll get a good streaming bandwidth. Wait a minute. I hope now this is visible.
Yes. Right.
Right. So, friends, as I said that whenever we want to conduct a research, so the research process will start from the identification of problem, then the formulation of the problem, then we have to set our objectives, we have to we have to set our hypothesis, we have to take the review, and then we have to look into that how we can handle our research problem, and we cannot directly jump to a data collection part, right? So what we need is to decide whether we are going to take the whole population for our research, or do we have to take a part of the population for our research. So naturally, that if you want to take a whole population for our research, that is not a good task. Not good in the sense, we will discuss about that thing. So whenever we are going for the complete enumeration, or whenever we are taking the whole population, that actually as a sense that we are calling it as a census method. So census method has so many drawbacks, right? Like, see, the complete enumeration involves lot of manpower, right? Lot of time, and we cannot, everyone cannot work for free for us, so we have to pay for them, and we need a lot of funds to carry out the census for the particular research. And obviously, the if you talk about the accuracy, so that can be also questionable. So so due to this few drawbacks of the census method, people are trying for getting an alternative for that. And the good thing is that yes, there are sampling. There is a technique called there is a term called as sampling, which serves as an alternative or the solution for the solution to this problem. So this, what do you mean by sampling actually? Let us we have to keep in mind that there are some drawbacks for the census method, and that drawbacks can be converted into the advantage in some particular methods. So the particular procedure, that is actually sampling. So when you want to conduct a research about group of people, it is rarely possible to collect the data from every person in that group. Instead, we select the sample. So now I'm just saying it is a group of people. You can extend that idea with group of items. Item may be trees, living and non-living things. You focus on your research, right? And you try to visualize that what is my unit. It may be like the patients, or it may be those who are from botany, the trees, right? Those who are from the zoology, they may take the unit as say the organism, particular organism. So you cannot have the observation on each and every individuals. So we'll have the we have to take the sample from that huge population. So what do you mean a sample actually? The sample is a group of individuals who will actually participate in the research. So we cannot go for each and every individual. We can select few of them. So sampling is a technique of selecting individual members or subset of the population to make the statistical inferences from them and estimate the characteristics of whole population. So now we will look into that. What do you mean by population? What are different characteristics of populations we have? How we can estimate that characteristics? And friends, ultimately, what we have to do, we have a problem and we have to do a research. Then we need a fixed targeted population, and that population contains certain population parameters. Like, say for example, uh, for example, and there is a group of say for example, we want to infer about the smoking habit of the students of the metropolitan city. So we want to know whether the proportion of the addicted students are more in that country, more in that city or not. So that the proportion of smokers is not known to us. So we want to estimate that parameter. So in that case, the youngsters of that particular city becomes the huge population, and we are not able to take the observation on each and every student, or say the teenager. So what we can do is we will try to get the sample of that group, right? So the different sampling methods are widely used by the researcher in the research, so that they don't need to the research the entire population to collect the actionable insights, right? So this process of selecting just a small proportion of the group of cases from a large group is actually called as a sampling. So act of drawing a sample from the huge population is actually called as a sampling. So how you can visualize these things? So let us look into the this picture. So I have here the huge population, right? And what I have to do, I have to infer this population, right? I have to make the inference about that population. So one thing is that I can take the interview of each and every individual. I can inspect each and every individual of my population, but that is not the feasible, right? That we have listed n number of disadvantages of this method. So what we can do is we'll take a part of that population. So that is actually my sample. So selecting a sample, the part of the population is a sampling scheme, right? And this is my sample. And now you focus on that sample and you estimate the parameters. So you implement the inferential procedures. You draw the inference based on this sample, and about what? About this entire population. Are you with me? So so this sampling is a very powerful tool of generalizing or making the inference about the whole population, right? So sampling is the process of selecting the representative samples from the populations. It is selecting the samples, the cases, the elements, or the locating the peoples or other units of the analysis from the targeted population in order to study the whole population. Will it be okay? So I guess the right up to this stage you got the idea about what they mean by sampling, right? So why we need to have a sample? The sampling is a valid alternative to the census method. What is census method? Complete enumeration of the whole population, right? So there are a number of what to say disadvantages, but now that advantages due to this disadvantages of the census method, we will have now sampling as an alternative for that, right? So when we carry out the sampling, our survey, see, the thing comes into picture is that whenever we are talking about the census method, it may be impracticable, right? That is what the main drawback. And then there are certain budgetary constraints on data collection, and as if you have the infinite number of population units, or if the population is infinite, So we have to spend a lot of time. So there is a time constraint on the data collection, and you can the results from the data collections are need to be quickly, right? So due to this certain drawbacks of census method, we have to go for the sampling, right? So uh, what is sampling procedure? So this is what the step. These are the steps. Sampling procedure comprises the several stages. Which are they? So first, define the targeted population, defining the population of the concern, right? Then specifying the sampling frame. What do you mean by sampling frame? We'll look into thoroughly, but right now you just have this state, specifying the sampling frame, a set of items or the events for the possible to measure. Then specifying the population sampling method for selecting items or events from the sampling frame. Then determining the sample size, implementing the sampling plan, and then you use this sampling scheme and you take the data, the data collection, and review your sampling procedure, right? So this is actually sampling procedure, right? So I think now you got the idea that the sampling, in order to understand the sampling, first we have to understand about the population, right? First, you need to understand the difference between the population and the sample, and then you identify the targeted population for your research, right? So what is the population? So the population is the entire group that you want to draw the conclusions about, right? Say for example, just now I said, like, I just want to know the proportion of smokers of the particular city, so that the individuals of that, all the citizens of that city becomes a huge population, right? So, and the main thing that we have to keep in mind, that the population has the population unit has certain common characteristics. Smokers, right? So the group of individuals who are the smokers, that forms the population, right? And now you want to you want to draw the inference about that population. That means the proportion of smokers, right? So then you look up, search for the sample. So what is the sample? The sample is a specific group of individuals that you will collect the data from. It now you have the huge population, and then you are selecting the part of that. So that is actually my sample, and you take the data on that sample, right? So the population can be defined in terms of geographical location. Just now I said city, villages, country, continent, and so on and so forth. Or maybe the population can be defined on the basis of age, the old age group, teenage group, young age group, something like that. Or maybe based on the income, or maybe other characteristics. Will it be okay? The population of male, population of female, population of all cancer patients of stage 1, and so on and so forth. So I guess now the idea about the population and the sample is clear to you, right? And now my sampling is based on the term called as sampling frame. So what do you mean by sampling frame? So the sampling frame is actually the list of individuals that the samples will draw from. So we have to list down our data, our units, right? So that list becomes a sampling frame. Ideally, it should be include the entire targeted population, and nobody who is not the part of the population will not comes into the sample. So these pictures will tell you that what is the exact relationship between the population, sampling frame, and sample. So do you see this, the group of individuals? So this is actually my population, right? And this is my individual. So this is the population unit. It is an element. Then you from that huge population, you will list down few of the some of them, and that serves my sampling frame. Will it be okay? and from that sampling frame, I will use certain sampling scheme, and I will select the sample. Will it be okay? And so this is my subject. Will it be okay? Now, what is the more of what we have to understand? The first thing we have to understand that every population unit will not come into the sample. Few of them will come into the sample. If one of the member is not of the population, that will definitely not coming into the sample. Right, that is one thing. And the second thing, everyone from the population will not come into the sample. Part of that comes into the sample. Okay. So the basic concept of the sample unit is that it has to be a population unit first, right? And it has to come into the sampling frame. Then and then only it will be come into the sample. I guess this idea is clear. So the population can have the following characteristics. So we'll have the three columns. So what do you mean the homogeneous population? So all the cases are similar, right? Say for example, all male, the group of males. So the common characteristic is gender. The all males are there. So the group of males become the homogeneous population. What do you mean by there is I've given an example over here that if you focus on a college, the or the university, and it has the university has several departments, right? So for example, statistics. So all first year, second year students of that department serves as the population. Will be okay, and that is a homogeneous population because all the students who are studying, who are from the statistics department, becomes a homogeneous population. But now, if you look into the university, that becomes a heterogeneous population because university running so many departments. Say focus on only the commerce faculty or science faculty. So we have say botany department is there, zoology department is there, mathematics department is there, statistics department is there. So that every department can be served as a subpopulation. And what is the beauty? That if you focus on the statistics department, that becomes a homogeneous population. But as a university, if you see, that becomes a heterogeneous population. Will it be okay? The point is when all the units have same characteristic, that becomes a homogeneous, right? Then stratified contains stratas or layers, like the people with the different levels of income. So you may say like the low income, medium income, and high income. So you can definitely see the stratification over there, right? The stratification is one of the characteristic. The proportional stratified. So it contains a strata of known proportion. Say maybe the percentage of the different nationalities of the students in the university, right? So that can be an example of that proportional stratified. So grouped by the types. So you can have the groups, the contents, the distinctive groups. For example, apartment building. So we have the towers, slabs, and villas, etc. So we'll have the population by types, the population by the groups by location. So that may be the one of the characteristic. Different groups according to where they are. So based on the location. So the animals in the different habitats like deserts, equatorial forest, and so forth. So these are certain characteristics that we must know, and based on that, we have to visualize our population and we have to take down the sample from that population. Will it be okay? I hope this idea is clear. Now it is the right time. Now we'll look into the sampling method. I guess now the idea is clear, right? So on one side we have the huge population, and we want to draw the inference about that huge population. What we have to do? We cannot infer whole population. We'll take a part of that, and then we'll have our conclusions based on the sample. So friends, we need a based sampling scheme, right? So what are different ways of sampling, or what are different techniques or methods do we have? Basically, the sampling methods are divided into two parts. Which are they? If you take see this slide on the left, we have probability sampling scheme, right? Probability sampling methods, and on the right will have the non-probability sampling methods, right? We'll see what do you mean by probability and the non-probability sampling scheme. But if you see the slide, under the probability sampling scheme, we have several types. Basically, there are two types. You got this point? Probability sampling schemes and non-probability sampling schemes, right? Methods. So, out of this probability sampling scheme, simplest is the simple random sampling, as name itself suggests. We will discuss about the simple random sampling scheme after a few minutes. Then cluster sampling, then systematic sampling, and the fourth one is stratified random sampling. I know there are few more like multi-stage sampling and all these things, but right now today we will cover these four about probability sampling scheme. And now look at the right side. So non-probability sampling schemes, which are they? So convenient sampling is there, judgmental or purposive sampling is there, then snowball sampling is there, and quota sampling is there. Now we'll look into the schemes one by one. I hope this point is clear, right? First classification is probability, non-probability, under probability, simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. All are probability sampling schemes. And convenient sampling, judgmental or purposive sampling, snowball sampling, and quota sampling that are under non-probability sampling scheme. Will it be okay? Now, what makes the difference between the probability sampling scheme and non-probability sampling techniques? The probability sampling techniques gives the most reliable presentation of the whole sample. So the chances are involved, right? In the non-probability techniques, relying on the judgment of the researcher or on the accident and cannot be generally be used to make the generalization about the whole population. It is based on the what to say, judgment of that researcher. So that thing we have to keep in mind. The probability sampling scheme, what do you mean by that? It is a sampling technique in which the sample from the larger populations are chosen using the method based on the theory of the probability. Now, I guess everyone is now familiar with the term called as probability. Probability is nothing but chance. If you toss a coin, so that is an uncertain experiment. So the experiment will result into the head and tail. So you know that there are two outcomes, but at particular trial you cannot predict that you will get a head or tail. So you have to talk in terms of probability, in terms of chances, right? So if you have the unbiased coin, the chances of getting head is 0.5 and getting tail is 0.5. Something like that. If your population contains 100 population units, each of these 100 population units will have the equal chance. It will be a 1 upon 100. Will be okay? So that is what the main thing. For a participant to be considered as a probability sample, he or she must be selected using the random selection. Don't give the preference. You have to select the sample randomly. The most important requirement of the probability sampling scheme is that everyone in your population has a known and equal chance of getting selected. Will it be okay? So the very important that every population unit has equal chance of selection. That is what the main thing. Probability sampling scheme uses the statistical theory to select randomly a small group of people, that is we are calling it a sample, from the existing large population, and then on the basis of that sample predict that all the responses together will match the overall population. Will it be okay? Right? What are different probability sampling schemes are there? There are main four probability sampling schemes most of the researchers are using. So out of which we are going to discuss about simple random sampling. Second one is stratified random sampling. The third one is cluster sampling, and the fourth one is systematic sampling. Let us start with a very simpler phenomena, a simpler sampling scheme. The name itself suggests it is simple random sampling. What? As the name suggests, it is completely random method, right, of selecting a sample. This sampling method is an as easy as assigning the number to the individuals, that is that we call it a sample, and then randomly choose from those numbers through a automated process. So now if you see, this is the group, say they are all from same locality, right? So they are from the same locality. Then the common characteristics about that population is that they are from the same locality. So that serves as a population. And now, if you randomly picked up them, so that becomes a sample, and you randomly selected without giving preference to anyone. You have selected them, and then that group becomes a sample. Will be okay. Now, friends, here I have not mentioned, but uh, uh, this uh, this simple random sampling is again divided into two types. Which are they? Here I have not mentioned, but just let me tell you what is the fact is. So simple random sampling with replacement and without replacement. What do you mean by that? In short, we will call the simple random sampling as SRS. What is SRS? Simple random sampling with replacement. Say for example, you focus on this population. Say for example, if I want to choose how many they are, say there are say 12 there are 9 candidates over here, right? Say for example, I have selected the first person is this, right? So I have selected for my sample. Now, in order to go for the second trial, if I am replacing this person once again into the population, and then taking a next draw or drawing a next sample and next drawing taking a next unit from that population, there may be the chance that this person will again come into the sample, right? So we are replacing this unit once again into the population before the next draw, right? So that becomes a simple random sampling with replacement. Why so? Because we are putting back the selected sample unit once again into the population. If you are not doing that, it becomes a simple random sampling without replacement. The best example is a lottery method, right? Person will get the chance to win the lottery once, right? Otherwise, the company is in trouble, right? So simple random sampling without replacement, simple random sampling with replacement. I guess this point is clear. Keep in mind that whenever you are keeping the selected unit once again to the process, that becomes with replacement. And if you are not putting into the process and throwing it out, so that becomes a simple random sampling without replacement. Will be okay? Fine. I hope this point is clear. And friends, when we are going to use the simple random sampling, the idea is that the population has if the population is homogeneous, then we can have the simple random sampling. Just now, if you see this population, somebody says like, sir, we have the males over there, females are there, then the boys are there, girls are there. Means the age difference is there, gender difference is there, but the main common characteristics is they are from homogeneity through location. So both all the candidates, all these persons are coming from say same locality. Will it be okay? So that's why it forms a homogeneous population, right? Right. But now the life is not easy. So sometimes every time we will not get homogeneous population, right? So we naturally found that there are certain layers, or there are subgroups into the population. And then what we have to do? We cannot use the simple random sampling over there. So what we have to do is we have to look for the alternative. So what is the alternative? The one of the alternative is stratified sampling. So we have to keep in mind that my population is heterogeneous, and then now I have to implement the sampling scheme. So stratified sampling this method involves method where the large population can be divided into the smaller groups that usually don't overlap but represent the entire population together. So do you see this? So these are all three types of faces we will have, right? So these represents these are all happy peoples, these are all sad peoples, these are the peoples who don't want to comment anything, right? So there are, say, three groups of peoples are there, and we want to select out of them, right? So if you implement the simple random sampling, and if by chance, say for example, all these three comes into your sample, so you and then your inference is not accurate, right? So because all these three are the happy persons and that are involved into the sampling scheme, and then that got selected, then the inference may be that all the people are happy, but that is not the case, because we have the neutral peoples in our population, the unhappy peoples are also in the population. So what we have to do, we can make the smaller groups. So the groups in statistics we call it as strata. So there are three stratas now. So first is this stratum, this stratum, this stratum, and then what we can do is, out of this first strata, we randomly select one, right? So now, friends, we have the huge population, and that I know that under that population I have the subpopulation, right? Like this. And from now you focus on the subpopulation, like say strata 1. And now you implement the simple random sampling over there, and you randomly select one unit out of this. Say for example, this person got selected, and which is included in our sample. Will it be okay? Now go to the next strata. Next strata, then out of these three persons, say for example, this one is selected, that is in our sample now, right? Because we have randomly selected out of these three. Now come to the strata number 3. Then out of these three, we have to choose randomly one, right? So the point is, whenever we want to go for a stratified random sampling, what we are doing, we are dividing the population into certain groups. What is the beauty of the groups? They are homogeneous, right? And once they becomes homogeneous, now we are able to implement a simple random sampling over there, right? So you stratified, you go for the stratification, you make the stratas, focus on the single strata, select the appropriate sample out of this sample subpopulation. I hope this point is clear. While sampling, these groups can be organized and then draw the sample from each group separately. That's what I'm saying. The common method is to arrange or classify the data by gender, by age, by ethnicity, or by another similar way. Will it be okay? I hope this point is clear, right? Let us come to the very simple example of stratified random sampling scheme. A company has, say, 800 full-timers and 200 part-timers, the part-time employees. To draw a sample of, say, 100 employees, a simple random sample of 80 full-time employees is selected, and simple random sample of 20 part-time employees is selected. Now, friends, what we have decided? So we have a company which has 800 full-timers and 200 part-timers. So there are 1,000 employees are there, and we know that 80% of them are full-timers and 20% of them are part-timers. So we will have the two groups, right? Full-time employees and part-time employees. Now, come to the sample size. So how many what is the sample size? Say 100. So if you want to choose 100 employees, you cannot choose, yes, you can choose 50 from the full-time and 50 from part-time, but that is also not a good thing, because you cannot go for the 50%, 50-50, what to say, 50-50 proportion. So you focus on the subpopulation. One population is of 80, which comprises 80% of observation, and the second group contains 20% of observation. So you retain that thing in that has to be replicated into the sample. So what we have to do, out of this 800, you have to select 80 full timers, and out of this 200 part timers, you have to select 20, so that your sample becomes a so-called nice sample, and that is actually stratified random sample of size 100. Will be okay? I hope from this point you will get the idea about the stratified random sample. Now, similar to this stratified random sampling, there is one more sampling scheme which is called as cluster sampling. What is that? Let us discuss about this cluster sampling. What do you mean by cluster sampling? It is a way to randomly select the participants when they are geographically spread out. Cluster sampling usually analyzes a particular population in which the sample consists of more than a few elements. For example, the cities, maybe family, university, etc. The clusters are then selected by dividing the greater population into the various smaller sections. So friends, what is the basic difference between stratified random sampling and the cluster sampling? See, here also we will have the stratification, right? But now instead of calling them as a strata, now we are calling them it as clusters, right? I know they are heterogeneous among themselves, right? So for example, so this is my 1, 2, 3, 4. This serves as the first cluster. Then 5, 6, 7, 8. This is my second cluster. 9, 10, 11, 12. Third cluster. 13, 14, 15, 16. This is my fourth cluster. And 17, 18, 19, and 20. This is my fifth cluster. And now, what do you mean as cluster sampling? Now, you out of these 5 clusters, now you have to choose single cluster, right? So what, let us say we are going to select the fourth cluster. Now what we did in a stratified random sampling scheme, say for example these are my stratas, from each strata we have to selected the observation, but that is not the case here. Out of these 5 groups, out of this 5 cluster, we have to choose exactly one group at a time. So we are going to select the fourth cluster. So what is my sample? What is the cluster sample? So 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. So this row I have written it as a column. So that becomes my clustered sample. Will be okay? I guess this point is clear. In stratified random sampling scheme, we are dividing the data into the homogeneous population, and from each of the homogeneous population, we are taking the subsamples, right? But in cluster sampling, we are dividing the population into different clusters, and we are picking up the clusters, the group itself. Will be okay? I hope this point is clear. The point may be clear with this slide actually. So what is stratified? Let us compare these two schemes. So under the stratified random sampling scheme, population is divided into few subgroups, right? And under the cluster sampling, population is divided into the many subgroups. And now from each of the subgroups, that is very important, from each of the subgroups, that each subgroups has many elements in it. And now in the each of these subgroups, in case of clusters, will have a few elements. So naturally we can select the cluster because it contains a few, but here there are many elements, so you can go for sampling again, subsampling again. So subgroups are selected according to the some criterion that is related to the variable under study, right? Say for example, just now we have said the smoking habit, right? So or say next characteristic is a gender. So male smoker, female smoker, something like that. Will be okay. The subgroups are selected in case of the cluster. The subgroups are selected according to the some criterion of is of or availability in the data collection. That is what the main point. And now, what about the homogeneity and heterogeneity? So in case of stratified random sampling, you have the homogeneity within the subgroups. Are you with me? But in case of clusters, there is heterogeneity in the subgroups, right? In case of the stratified random sampling, there is heterogeneity between the subgroups because male female group, right? Whereas in the cluster sampling there is homogeneity between the subgroups. They look like same, right? But if you focus on the clusters are heterogeneous uh, internally, right? the the choice of the element from within each subgroups, right? So we have to select the elements from that group subgroups, and we have to randomly choose the subgroups. I hope the point is clear about the stratified random scheme and cluster sampling scheme, right? Now come to the third and very simplest and very useful technique of sampling scheme, which is called as systematic sampling. As name itself suggests, we have to systematically arrange the population and then go for the sampling. It is it is when you choose every nth individual to be the part of the sample. For example, you can choose every fifth person to be in a sample. And systematic sampling is an extended implementation of the same old probability techniques in which each member of the subgroup is selected at regular period to form a sample. There is an equal opportunity for every member of the population to be selected using this sampling scheme. If you understand this thing, let us have this example. Now friends, what will be the constraint for the systematic sampling? We have the listed population, right? We must have the listed population. We must have the sampling frame with us, and that is numbered, right? Say for example, these many people are with us, right? Say for example, there are 9 persons are here. Now what do you mean by the systematic sampling? So we'll make an interval. As there are 9, we will make a group of 3 3 3, right? So we'll have the 3 groups, and out of these 3 groups we randomly select one person. Say for example, I will select the third person. Now randomly select one from the first interval. Then after, the randomness is gone. Now you have to systematically select. In the sense, now you focus, what is the interval? It is of 3. Now if the third person is got selected, now it is binding that you have to select the 6th person, then 9th person. Likewise, your systematic sample will contain third person, 6th person, and 9th person in your sample. Would be okay, right? Say for example, I have selected the second person randomly. Yeah? Then the randomness is now gone. What you have to do? Now you have to select every third person. So second is there, then 5th person, and then 8th person. Will be okay? That's why it is called as what to say, systematic sampling. And the what point we have to notice here, there are 9 persons. We have uh, divided into 3 groups. Each contain the 3 elements. And now you focus on the first interval, first group, and from the first group randomly select pick one, and then after you choose third person. Will it be okay? Idea can be generalized to any number of observations, right? I guess this point is clear to you, right? Let us focus on the next part, which is actually called as the non-probability sampling scheme. So because see, every time it is not possible to have probability samplings. We will go for, every time we will not go for the probability sampling scheme, but we have to we have to look into the convenience of the researcher and so many things. That's why we have to study the non-probability sampling techniques. So how many techniques we have? So there are few more, but we are going to discuss about convenience sampling, then judgment sampling, quota sampling, and snowball sampling. Let us see one by one. Convenience sampling. So name itself suggests it is a non-probability sampling technique used to create a sample as per the age of the access, readiness to be the part of the sample, availability at the given time slot, or any other practical specification of a particular element. The convenient sampling involves selecting haphazardly those cases that are easiest to obtain for our research, for our sample, such as the person interviewed at random in shopping center for a television program. So for example, so this is the group we have conveniently, or by as per our convenience, we have selected these candidates out of this group. Will be okay? So we are here, right? We are here, and we are, say for example, we are in mall, right, in a shopping center, and now we have to select few candidates out of this huge crowd. So as I'm here and I'm very convenient about these three candidates, what I will do, instead of preferring this candidate, this fellow, I will prefer these three persons for myself. So that is what the convenience sampling. What you understand from this? So the chances is not equal for the uh, for each, right? Those who are familiar or those who are near to me, that most probably I'm going to select. So the probabilities are higher to those who are near to me, right? So they have the unequal chances. So but we are not going for the, we are not talking about the chances now, because see, if you want to talk about the chances, then we have to go for the probability sampling scheme. But the point we have to note down over here, that based on my convenience I have selected these many people, right? Next is the judgmental sampling. So in the judgmental sampling, also called as a purposive sampling, the sample members are chosen only on the basis of the researcher's knowledge and the judgment, right? So we have to use our judgment, we have to use our perception, we have to use our knowledge for the selection procedure. It enables you to select the cases that will be best enable you to answer your research questions and to meet your objectives, right? Those who are ready to give you the responses, to them you are going to select, right? Right? So this is the group. Out of this group, this is, say for example, this is our researcher, the researcher. So he has used his knowledge and he has selected these many people by based on his judgment, or based on his knowledge, or based on their consent. Will be okay. This is actually a judgmental sampling scheme, right? Then the next one is actually a snowball sampling scheme, where the name itself suggests the snowball sampling method. So snowball sampling method is purely based on the referrals, and that is how the researcher is able to generate the sample. Therefore, in this method, therefore this method is also called as chain referral sampling method. So you have to make a chain. We'll come to this example few seconds, in a few seconds. But look at this thing. This sampling technique can go on and on, just like a snowball, increasing in size, right? In this case of the sample size, till the time a researcher has the enough data to analyze and to draw the conclusive results that can help the organization, or for the researcher to make the informed the decisions. In the sense, say for example, I am the researcher, and what I will do is, randomly I picked up a person and he is ready to give me the information, right? Based on that, based on I will ask to this person that, do you know that can I get a few more candidates so that they can answer my questions? Say for example, this person suggested these two persons, right? Then I will ask few questions to these two persons separately. And again, I make the common question that, sir or madam, do you know any person who is going to respond me? So say for example, this person has responded to these three, then I will ask same questions, research questions, and the same question that, sir, madam, can you give me the few more candidates for my research, for my survey? So these many people have responded. In short, we'll have these many candidates. And now where we have to stop? It is up to the researcher, right? Say for example, my target is of getting say 150 respondent, and out of this stage, out of this chain method, say for example we have reached up to 150, then we have to stop at there, right? It is like snowball. I guess this point is clear. The next sampling scheme is called as a quota sampling. So the what do you mean the quota sampling? Selection of members in this sampling technique happens on the basis of preset standards, right? In this case, the sample is formed on the basis of the specific attributes. Like here, we have made a criteria that all the males above 50. So we have to specify the attributes. Create the sample will have the same attributes that are found in the total population, and it is an extremely quick method of collecting the sample, because as this the implementation is quite easy. The quota sampling is therefore a type of, yes, the stratified samples in which the selection of cases within the strata is entirely non-random. Will it be okay? So here is the group. I put the constraint that I'm going to take down the group of male whose age is above 50. Will it be okay? So that we'll have this we'll have this quota sample. Will it be okay? Uh, Actually, I have talked about the different sampling scheme. Maybe I have not covered, but the natural question may be that how to select the sample, right, from the huge population. So the thing is that in order to get an appropriate sample size, we have to look into the precision, variation, and so many things. So there are certain tools and techniques are there, or there are fixed formulas on which you have to decide how much precision you want, what variability you want to allow. Based on that, you have to take down the sample. Okay. So I'm not going to go for the sample size determination, but better I will stop here. We'll have the few comments or any question from the audience, and we'll stop here. So uh, and thank you to you all for the patient listening. Okay, yeah, ma'am.
So, yeah, as of now, we haven't received any single question from the audience,
Right, madam.
and it was, though it was very brief, but we can say that it was very precise too, and you have covered almost everything, whatever is essential to carry out a basic research.
Research, exactly.
Yeah. So, what I believe is, I think we can wind up the session as
Um,
we don't have any single question from the audience side, and whereas you were very clear in your explanation, so I don't think so there's any issue like. So, with your permission, I would like to thank.
Yes, let me
Uh,
thanks to you, madam, for the nice introduction and cooperation. Same thing to convey that to the Professor Wajid sir, IQC director and the head of the Commerce and Management
computers.
Department, Computer Science Department, and obviously the principal of Anjuman Arts Science College, Arts Science Commerce College, and PG Studies English, Vijayawada.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
College.
Vijaypur,
So
sir.
thank you so much, and thanks to audience also.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, I, on
Thank
behalf of
you.
Anjuman Management Degree College and all the participants, thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
very
you.
precise presentation. Have a good
Yes.
day.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So, the participants, The link will be shared for tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and the feedback link will be shared only on WhatsApp and not on YouTube comment. So, those who have not joined the WhatsApp group, kindly join it as early as possible. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.